Well, if you can believe it, a judge in New York, of all places, ruled yesterday that Donald Trump, quote, persistently committed fraud by inflating the value of his assets. This is the same judge that valued Mar-a-Lago at like only $18 million. This guy, Justice Arthur Energon, he went on to strip the former president of control over some of his signature New York properties. I don't even know how you could do that. After declaring that Trump had, quote, fraudulently secured favorable terms on loans and insurance deals. Of course, Democrats are calling this a major victory for Attorney General Letitia James, who claims that Trump overvalued his holdings by more than $2 billion. Now, look, it's important to note that the people, those insurance companies, who would have allegedly been harmed by these fraudulent claims, they're not the plaintiffs. They're not the ones pushing this lawsuit. It's the politically motivated Letitia James who told us she would do this to get elected. The former president came to the defense of his businesses, claiming, quote, it's a great company that has been slandered and maligned by his politically motivated witch hunt. It's very unfair, and I call for help from the highest courts in New York State or the federal system to intercede. This is not America. He's got that right. But joining me now to discuss, General Counsel and spokesman for the Save America PAC, Alina Habba. Alina, this is maddening to me. I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, what do they have, 800, 900,000 employees? These people could lose their jobs over this, and they don't even know what to do yet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, actually, we asked today for the court to give us some clarity on it, and we were not able to get an answer on that, which was concerning. The order came down yesterday. It was 35 pages, and as you pointed out, one of the things they said was that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. If that's the case, Carl, I think you and I should go in and buy it. Let's also remember something. If the Trumps had sold Mar-a-Lago for $18 million to their kids, they would have been criminally charged for a fraudulent conveyance. It would have been a conveyance issue, a criminal charge, civil charges. That's what they do. So they can't cut it any way they want unless you're a Trump. And that's what they're doing here. They don't even understand, frankly, in my opinion, what they're doing.
Well, that also gives him an enormous ability to claim a loss on that property because I mean, these people don't get it. But here's the bigger issue. You ask for clarity. He can't give you the clarity. Now you have, like we said, 800 to 1,000 jobs in limbo. Does he have to close these companies? Partnerships have to be done or undone. You have an immense array of real estate that has no direction on what to do now. Does this judge seems completely unhinged? Does he even know what he's doing?
I'm not going to make a comment on that. I'm glad you did. But I will say this. GBL 130, we're still trying to understand from the judge. We looked for clarity today. He couldn't give it to us. But let's talk big picture here. This is a judge who has always had his position that, if you're a dollar off on your statement of financial condition, which has a clause that says that you are to rely on your own due diligence. These are Deutsche Bank, sophisticated banks, sophisticated companies. You're telling me that you go in and buy a house. You say, my house is worth $2 million. Are you going to pay me $2 million? Are you going to come in, do your own valuation, do your own assessment? That isn't fraud. That's called real estate. And nobody is doing anything wrong here. Nobody was wronged. People made money, and everything was 100% done the way they would normally do things, the way anybody would normally do things. The value that the judge put on here is, frankly, from a tax assessor. Meanwhile, there were experts that said that Mar-a-Lago's worth over $1 billion, $1.5 billion. And he came down and said that there was no question of fact. Explain that to me.
Well, maybe he should sell it to his kids for $18 million, take the loss, and they get to assume the asset, and they can sell it for whatever they want. And look, a judge said that's what it's kept, so I guess that's the market value. But, Alina, let's not call them geniuses over at MSNBC. They had a field day with this one. Listen to this.
There are real consequences, and it seems to be there's a chance that he will lose his business ability to do business in New York State, which is where his empire is located. It's where Trump Tower is. It's where he's got several golf courses. How realistic is that to happen? What would that mean?
I mean, I think at this point, it's very realistic. So far, they have not taken kindly to his arguments in New York State. The Attorney General absolutely has the authority to do so.
But, Alina, these are, presumably residents of New York, or at least the tri-state area, that have paid mortgages and salaries and car payments and school tuitions based on Donald Trump's building of basically rearranging the New York City skyline. And they want to take the food out of there. This is not going to hurt Donald Trump that much.
No, it's going to hurt New York.
Exactly.
It's going to hurt New York, but they don't care about New York. And if you're a New York business, I hope you're paying attention. This means a judge can single-handedly, without a trial, come in and say, I don't agree with the value you put on your real estate. No one was hurt. Your mortgages were paid on time. Interest was paid. And by the way, the banks made money. But hey, we're worried about New York. Why don't you start looking at the streets of New York for a second? Why don't you start looking at the businesses like Donald Trump's business, like his family and his kids who are now under siege for no reason other than that their father is the leading political candidate right now.
Yeah.
It is not fair. It is not right. And it is, frankly, unconstitutional, in my opinion, what they are doing. So we're going to do what we need to do.
But wouldn't you think, though, that, obviously you were talking about summary judgment for people at home. Summary judgment is basically, you present a bunch of stuff to the judge makes a ruling on what he thinks are the facts without arguments from both sides.
He's saying there is no question of fact. He's saying that the AG's office, which, by the way, I want to prove another point, the AG's office said that Mar-a-Lago is worth more than the judge did. But the judge is saying that's what it's worth, and that's it. There's no question, even though there are experts that said, and if you just go on Trulia as a layman, there is nothing, let alone a property like Mar-a-Lago, which is one of its kind, goes from one side of the road past the ocean. I'm telling you, there is only a tennis court worth $18 million at Mar-a-Lago. It is absolutely absurd what he's trying to say.
But, going back to the way they did this, there was no trial.
No trial.
So this judge unilaterally could potentially have stripped 1,000 people of their well-being and welfare by a couple pieces of paper that had no arguments from opposing counsel?
No, there was just papers submitted, expert reports dismissed, not even heard from the experts. He didn't ask questions of them, meet them. He didn't hear their testimony live. No, he didn't. It was all on the papers. And that's something that the left-wing media is failing to understand. They keep talking about a jury, not jury. We didn't even get to that. There is no jury or non-jury. We are sitting in front of a judge that has made a decision based on the papers that there is absolutely no question of fact and that he doesn't like the numbers on Donald Trump's valuations, even though the banks and everybody else not only did their own, but didn't get hurt, made money. Explain that to me.
That's the problem, is generally in a crime. This is also civil, correct?
Civil case. It's
right. So he's not guilty, he's liable.
Right.
Or liable? Is that what it is?
Liability.
I don't even have a college degree.
Money.
So, exactly.
Money and business.
So, but the bigger problem is, how do you see this going to an appeal immediately?
So there's actually a pending appeal that is, we're still waiting, Article 78 to be exact, not an appeal for the non-lawyers. We're still waiting on a decision that tells us what the scope of a trial would be. Somehow we got the summary judgment motion before that, but I'm not going to give anybody a window into our strategy,
Sure.
But just know that there is one, and we have some very, very bright attorneys on the team, and we're working diligently to make sure we take care of the Trump family.
Let's zoom out a little bit to the more political side of the legal argument here.
Sure.
It's like these judges do basically whatever they want. They're on the bench for life. They don't have to worry about anybody's opinion. What's the recourse? Let's say this gets overturned unilaterally by a judge tomorrow or a panel or whatever.
Right.
Is there any recourse to say, hey, this judge made a really bad call?
Yes. Yes, there's ethical recourse to that, as well as motions that the judge should recuse. There are many recourses you can take on these judges. The problem is that you have judges judging judges. And that in itself, when you have some of the corruption that we've seen, some of the decisions that are so vitally flawed in this country right now, you're asking a lawyer to monitor another lawyer, and sometimes they're on the same side. And frankly, I find that the ones that are on the right side are more hesitant to look impartial. It's the same thing that we see in politics. You see it all the time. The Nancy Pelosi's have no problem throwing down, but when it comes our turn, we have Kevin McCarthy not necessarily being as hard-nosed as I would think he would be. And I'm not exactly. I'm not a politician, but I can tell you that lawyers govern lawyers, judges govern judges, and frankly, recusals are decided by the judges sitting in that seat themselves, which is nonsensical.
We've investigated ourselves and found ourselves has done nothing
sounds like
wrong.
the FBI and the CIA. Haven't we heard this before?
It's unbelievable. Alina Habba, thank you for being a warrior for my man. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.